Hi guys. So the book that I will be talking about with you today is The Myth of the Nice Girl: Achieving the Career You Love Without Becoming a Person You Hate by Fran Hauser. Fran Hauser is a longtime media executive, startup investor, and celebrated champion of women and girls. She's held senior positions at some of the world's largest digital media businesses, and she is now an angel investor, largely focusing on investing in female founders.
The premise of the book is actually really simple in that if you're nice, if you do all those things, you're empathetic, you're collaborative, you're generous, what that does is it engenders trust. And when you have trust, that allows you to build a relationship. And at the end of the day, being successful in business is all about relationships, right? It all comes back to relationships. And the other big message in the book is that you don't have to choose between being nice and being tough. You can be both. And there's that duality that I think really runs throughout the whole book. So like when I'm talking about communication, it's you can be kind and direct. You know, when you're negotiating, you can be empathetic and strategic. So these things aren't mutually exclusive.
Reading Fran's book, you come across a lot of the things that we talked about in class, some of the stats around women applying for jobs or learning about the conversation weakeners. So there's a lot of really impactful stories about how those key learnings have manifested in her life and the life of other prominent women that she interviewed. She also talks about mentorship and how important it has been for her as she's come up in her career, and talks about some of the great mentors who have helped her along the way. So what I wanted to focus on is a few things that kind of go into the future. So we have these key learnings, and she gives great examples of those. But what are some of the ways that we can take those learnings and apply them going forward as we're leaving class? So the three things that I wanted to focus on are investing in yourself, networking, and lifting others up. So lifting each other up is a really important idea, and I know it's something that's come up in class already, where we have all these great takeaways now, and we want to know how we can bring them to others and strengthen other women along the way. So one of the things that Fran recommends is how to help lift each other up in a meeting. So if you have someone on your team or someone even in a group project that you're working with who isn't necessarily speaking up but has a lot of great ideas, setting aside times for them to speak up. So Fran talks about a time where she was being kind of quiet in meetings early on in her career, and a boss said to her, "Fran, I'm going to ask you to give the update on this in the meeting." And that gave her time to prepare, know what she was going to say, and then go ahead and say it in the meeting. And over time, that allowed her to build up her confidence and move into being able to speak up more naturally. So that's a really easy way that all of us can lift each other up and allow other people to build on their confidence in the same way that we have. So all of that talk about lifting each other up is a great segue for networking, which is the next key takeaway that I wanted to talk about. So Fran tells this fantastic story of a woman who was working in PR, and their company was bought out by another company that was a lot more digitally focused, and she didn't really have that skill set. And in the time where they first merged, she had to figure out how to get into a new career or to make herself relevant. So her friend launched into a huge networking strategy, was networking for about an hour a day, devoted to either making contacts, informational interviews, going to different industry events, and focusing on meeting people. And it ended up working out for her. But the big takeaway was it shouldn't have been up until that point where she was about to lose the job before she started to really commit to that time period. I think it's so easy to say like, "Oh, I'm too busy," or like, "Oh, like I know people." But if we're not really nurturing those relationships and committing ourselves to networking, we can miss out on those opportunities to meet others. And the other big takeaway for networking was to think about how you can help people too. So that kind of goes back into like the nice girl mentality of offering people what your services might be. So maybe you can connect them, and that gives you the opportunity to talk to them again. But it also just helps solidify your position as an expert and as a resource in your industry, which is really important. Something that nice girls may feel is selfish by taking on actions like this. But I want to spend some time talking about investing in yourself, which is a key takeaway that I found in this book. I think it's so easy to put the company first that you're working for and really give it everything that you have. But if you're not also doing things that are advancing your career, you're doing a disservice to both yourself and your company. I just want to take you through some of the things that Fran said about investing in yourself, some of her big topics that she covers. First is to build relationships within your company. So obviously that makes sense. You want to make sure that you're nurturing ties with people who will be able to help you and give you advice in your job. Also, looking outside of that by doing extracurricular activities that plant further seeds. So while we may be giving our job 110% and feel disloyal going out and networking, our companies aren't necessarily thinking about us in the same way. So Fran talks about the importance of getting out there, knowing what you're passionate about, and pursuing those to help you feel fulfilled, but also to make sure that you have coverage if needed. In the same lieu, she talks about staying on top of industry trends and cultural forces. And that kind of goes back to the story I told earlier about the woman who suddenly had to do all of the networking at the end to maintain her job. And then she also talks about don't be afraid to ask. And I think that that's something that we do feel, and it can feel tough or awkward or not nice to ask for things for ourselves. But doing that is really going to set us apart and show our strength without looking bad. All of these ideas kind of come together to making the full person. And the full person is not just head down working, that full person is networking, is reaching out, is studying industry trends, is constantly learning. And doing all of those things both sets you up as a force and allows you to move further. But all of those things are also things that are built on relationships and on being genuine and kind and getting to know people, letting people know you through that initial mentality. There's so much more that I could say about this book, and I think that it'd be a great book to kind of have by your side with you as you're going through life. There's really practical advice at the end of each section, like conversation starters, like sample emails. There is a boundaries framework that I think would be fantastic based on everyone's goals and things that people have said in class. I think that's something that all of us could use. So I'll leave that as a commercial trailer for this book. Maybe I'll become an influencer for Fran here. But really, I cannot recommend this book enough. And I think it was a good read for any